shows how much
What
money
has
you make
become a
essentially
novelty?
and how much money you
What
give
has
to
become a
charity.
novelty, Katrina? What has become a novelty?
Just simply releasing tax returns, because
It's been going on since the 1970s. It's now a tradition, not a novelty. The voters want to know, and especially with Mr. Trump.
It's a novelty tradition.
Excuse me? Okay, since the 70s, it's now a novelty. Okay, let me just ask you this, Katrina. Here's the thing. The reason why the voters love Mr. Trump is that because he is a successful businessman. They think that he can do the same for the business of this country, create jobs, get the economy back on track. So that is why they want to see his tax returns. Why won't he show them? Put the proof in the pudding.
Well, there's a lot of people that have said, don't dare show your tax return. Don't let the media bully you into doing something you're not ready to do.
This is a tradition,
so it goes both
Katrina.
ways.
Why is it the media?
It is a novelty tradition, and Mr. Trump has already said that he would do it once the audit is released.
Now, good to see you, Katrina.
Good to see you.
How do you feel Donald Trump did tonight?
I think Mr. Trump did a fantastic job. For him to get up there on the national stage for the very first time, I think he did a fantastic job. I think the moderator did a great job. I think they both had equal time and plenty of opportunity to defend themselves and to respond when necessary, and I think he did a great job.
You know, something that got a lot of traction on social media was the fact that whenever he talked about President Obama, he always said, "Your president." Don't you find that sort of language a lot of people are saying was pretty divisive? Why did he choose to use that?
Well, I think anything Donald Trump says, particularly on social media, you're going to find a problem with.
But why did he? Was it a tactic that the strategist in your camp decided to do?
Oh, no, not at all. This was just Mr. Trump responding to Hillary Clinton. It's very important for him to make sure that the record was clear on a number of issues, whether it be the Iraq War or even the birther issue.
But why? I'm asking specifically, why did he say "your president" when referring to President Obama?
Well, I wasn't in his head, but you can ask him when you talk to him. But there was no negative connotation implied. He was just saying, you know, that was your president that did it.
But does he not think that President Obama is his president?
Oh, of course he does. Of course he does. Of course he thinks it's his president. It was just his way of...
Because he had Hispanic parents and Trump wants to build a wall, he couldn't get a fair hearing before this judge.
Right, because of the affiliations that this judge had with organizations who are against Mr. Trump.
That's not what Trump said. That's what you said.
No,
you made a better argument
but that's why he made the statement.
No, that isn't. He was asked repeatedly, and he said he's a Mexican, which he wasn't. He's from Indiana. My point, I don't want to relitigate it all of it, but her point is, it's not just women. He said so many controversial things, and on the women front, let me ask you, because you come on the show all the time. You obviously love Trump, and you're a great defender of his. But when you saw that tape, what was your reaction?
Look, I have two brothers. I was in sports, so I was around a lot of athletes. This truly was two men who had what they thought was a private conversation talking about an attractive woman. He calls it locker room banter.
Do your brothers talk about grabbing women by the genitals?
I don't know what they talk about specifically, because when I walk into the room, they stop those discussions.
You know your brothers. You believe that they talk about grabbing women by the genitals and laughing about it and doing whatever they want to them?
But what I will say is I've also been around a lot of famous athletes and Hollywood celebrity types. And that is the entertainment culture. This was just discussion. This was two guys having a discussion. Nothing actually took place. They were words, and they were 11 years ago. The bigger point here...
He was 59 years old then. It's not like he was 20.
Well, no, absolutely. But he's still two men having a discussion, a private discussion. Megan, we can have private discussions. Women have private discussions, even at my age of 40.
I've never had a discussion like that in my life.
Maybe not like that, but we do have discussions in private. Exactly why you see this uprising on both sides of the aisle by the average worker who say enough is enough. This is the fault of Bill Clinton and those that followed him, and as well as Hillary Clinton.
Here we go.
Who continue to push, for bailing out the banks. They're too big to fail, deemed by the government, and the little people are getting hurt. If this were a smaller bank, a mom and pop shop, somebody would be going to jail. Final word, Alan.
It is disingenuous to blame this on Hillary Clinton and let Donald Trump off the hook. He's been an inside player. He was
blaming Hillary. He never voted for a single one of those bills.
Can I please finish the sentence, Katrina? You had a lot of time to speak here. Donald Trump was an inside player in Atlantic City. He was an inside player with the government. He got all kinds of largesse from the government. He wouldn't have had his career had he not gotten tax breaks. He would sue the government when he didn't get tax breaks, and that's how he built his career, on the backs of taxpayers. Wow. So don't act all innocent like it's all Hillary Clinton. Come on.
Alan, vote for a single bailout for these banks.
All right. Well, you know, we did roll the tape, and when Mr. Trump was responding to Jake Tapper, he said he didn't know who David Duke was. He clearly said that. I don't know why he said that, but he did indeed say that.
And then tried to blame it on the New York piece that he couldn't hear.
Came out
Carol, there were reports that came out that it was not true, that there was no endorsement. So he didn't know what Jake was talking about after
he
he'd
said
already
he didn't know who David Duke was.
Listen, let me just say something right here.
Because it had already come out that it didn't happen.
All of that doesn't matter. It's clear that Donald Trump is a manipulator. He does it all the time because he thinks people are stupid and that everyone are rubes. But what are facts also is that we aren't even talking about Donald Trump's questionable history with race. Back to when the DOJ sued the Trump Organization for racial discrimination in the 1970s. Or when Donald Trump came out and said how much he loves, quote, the blacks. Or, you know, I mean, we can go down the list of very questionable things that Donald Trump has said. But I don't know, maybe Katrina Pierson is one of the blacks he likes since he pays her to clean up his mess every day on television.
Katrina, how do you square those two? Well, he said very specifically, yes, he's going to still build the wall, but he said, and I'm quoting, I just want to follow the law. We'll work with them. That's a big change.
Well, first, let me correct the record first. Donald Trump did go to the community in the primary. It was in March, and it was in Chicago. So I hope that CNN continues to correct that narrative moving forward by saying that he's never even tried to go to the community, because he has. And secondly, he hasn't changed his position on immigration. He's changed the words that he is saying. What he has always said from the beginning is that he does not, that he does not want to allow people to stay in this country illegally. He does want to build the wall, but he wants to work with Congress to get things done. And that's exactly what he has said from violently protesting,
Katrina,
calling for cops to be murdered in the streets. That's absurd.
No one has called people who don't want ISIS to move into their neighborhood Islamophobic. That has never happened in the history of the world.
That is absolutely what they are talking about. If you speak out against bringing in Syrian refugees, you are a bigot.
People call people who hate Muslims Islamophobic, but people do not say that about people who don't want ISIS to move in. Listen, it's not just critics who are in the liberal media, quote unquote. According to his office, Republican Senator Mike Lee today spoke with Pence and told him, quote, Republicans must identify David Duke's racism as deplorable. Lee also encouraged the Trump campaign to be explicit in its denunciation of the alt-right movement. That is not a liberal. That is Utah Senator Mike Lee, a Tea Party conservative, red Republican. He thinks your campaign and your candidates are not doing enough to condemn these racist views. Is Mike Lee wrong?
And he's also a never-Trumper who has never had anything nice to say about Mr. Trump. And really, this entire interview...
And then I'll give you the floor back.
Go ahead, Robert. Take a breath. Here's the bottom line. Katrina, I think you learned your political analysis at Trump University, because what we've seen in this election...
You're the rhapsodic one, George.
First of all, it's Robert. You've got a fixation on George Zimmerman, which says something else. The other point is what makes this election so unique is you see an unprecedented number of leading Republican experts in Homeland Security, in fighting terrorism, in our military, including now President George Herbert Walker Bush, now standing up and supporting Hillary Clinton because they regard Donald Trump as reckless, dangerous, and an incompetent leader.
To the reports that the father, who is a strong proponent of Sharia law, and actually writing about it and how the Constitution should be subordinate to Sharia law.
That's not
why
true,
that even
Katrina.
came up in the interview.
That's not true. The father has addressed that. I'll just read to you, unless we have it on tape. He said that we do have it on tape. All right, let's play it.
Sharia law, as we have titled, there is no such thing as Sharia law. These are laws of various Muslim countries, which are hodgepodge of British laws, French laws, Portuguese laws. In there is tremendous discrimination of genders, which disqualifies them under the Constitution of the United States, cannot be implemented, cannot be brought. How can I be a person that has read this? I preach that I do not stand for any Sharia law, because there is no such thing.
Katrina, he doesn't stand for it. He never has stood for it. He carries around the U.S. Constitution.
Allison, you're right.
He abides by the Constitution.
You're right. That's what he said. But I'm just telling you the reports and the documents that he wrote were put out there for all to see, which says the exact opposite. That's what Mr. Trump was referring to. There was no attack. It was an observation.
But
Allison,
we got to go to break. But Mr. Trump was talking about the mother and why she didn't speak at the convention. That's exactly what he said.
But these comments, Katrina, are driving women away. The latest polls show that Mr. Trump is in free fall right now. His attacks aren't working. His apologies aren't working. So why doesn't he try something else?
Well, look, we have plenty of time left in this race, and again, this is something that the media is heavily focused on. When we keep hearing
People have
from
already
the left,
started voting.
when we keep hearing from, just out of curiosity, what exactly is Mr. Trump supposed to be apologizing for? Just so that I'm clear.
Well, he raised questions about the mother, for example, why she didn't speak. This was a woman who was grieving for her son, and he was raising all sorts of questions about why she didn't speak alongside her husband at the Democratic convention. Was that appropriate?
Well, if you watch that interview, though, Wolf, it came up because of the reports that he was discussing that had come out about Mr. Khan having this fee-for-service of bringing in Muslims and writing laws or law briefs for Sharia law. How is that a far-fetched assumption?
Wasn't he disrespectful, though, to that Gold Star family?
Disrespectful by defending himself? He didn't say anything about the son. In fact, he honored his service. The only thing he said, Wolf, is basically, this man knows nothing about me. Why is he criticizing me? How is that an attack?
Well, most people would have just said, you know what, this family has lost a son, a hero, fought on the battle, prevented some of his fellow soldiers from dying by going into that suicide, that car bombing, if you will. I'm not going to get into a discussion of back and forth. I praise this family, I praise the son, and move on. He didn't have to go back and forth and respond to all of the statements made by the father.
But surely you can understand the confusion. Snopes is a really good website to check out some of those statements.
It's not Snopes, no, the Department of Justice.
We're just going
to throw anything out there,
aren't we?
Or wait a minute, or how about when he wrote, how about in the book where he said that he hates blacks that count his money, but he wants short guys who wear yarmulkes to count his money, and he hates black bankers. How about that? You can laugh all you want, but these
Republicans are very, very desperate right now to where they're turning into actual Democrats and trying to use race baiting.
Oh no, that was Donald Trump who was the Democrat. That was Donald Trump who was the Democrat who turned into a Republican. He's the imposter, not me. You can check
he's winning. That's all that matters. He's winning.
Unfortunately to you, apparently that's all that matters, not integrity.
Thanks to you both, Katrina.
Order, absolutely.
Allison and John, if I may, just briefly, this is the type of fact-free environment that we're living in. Not only do people fail to realize, or Katrina fails to realize, or just fails to articulate, that Donald Trump actually supported the Iraq war before he was against it, and to actually blame a sitting state senator in Illinois for changing the rules of engagement in 2004 and causing the death of this great war hero is the height of irresponsibility. But further, you get deep down to the bones of the Trump campaign, and the fact that Katrina Pierson won't even apologize this morning is indicative not just of her, but it's indicative of the top of this campaign. It's exactly what Captain Khan's father was talking about. It's about decency and respect. And until we can get back to that playing field, all else is moot.
Katrina, you acknowledge you got it wrong.
Donald Trump did not vote for that war. Period.
Donald Trump, in an interview in 2000, he said he was supportive of the war before the invasion.
He did not vote for the war. He did not choose.
He couldn't have voted. He was a private person.
He was a private person. Barack Obama did not vote for the war.
Katrina, he has said get them out.
Yes.
He's been very clear about his position. This is a change. This is a shift. This is a flip-flop. It's an evolution. Whatever words you want to use.
No, Erica, it's the how that's being discussed now. He's always said if they're here illegally, they have to go.
Before he talked about the how, and he said there would be a deportation force. So now he is shifting. Katrina, there is a definite different message that we're hearing now.
There's not a different message. He's using different words to give that message because everyone on the news is saying that he's a bigot and that he's a racist because of the words that he uses. Now he's simply saying, yes, we are going to follow the law.
I just want to, for factual sake of just correct information, when you said that Barack Obama took the country into Afghanistan, it was not during the, of course, as you know, during the Obama administration when we first went into Afghanistan.
No.
It was shortly after.
We're talking about ISIS specifically.
Okay, but your statement was that Barack Obama took us into Afghanistan and it was his war. It was President Bush who took the country into Afghanistan shortly after 9/11. But I want to get
I thought we were talking about the founding of ISIS. I mean,
okay.
ISIS came out of the Obama side of the war.
Oh.
Is that not a fact?
No, it is not a fact, because in 2004, as I stated in the last segment, that AQI, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, was started by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, and then in 2006, it morphed into Iraq, the Islamic State in Iraq, and then later became the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
Absolutely.
But let me get to
yes, and after the search, but also, Victor,
Trump campaign. You were just saying before we came on that no one wants to talk about the issue, so I'm sure you're going to be upset that the national AP lead is already out, and you know what the lead is that your candidate is not willing to say he will accept the results of the election. You're shaking your head, but shouldn't that disturb people?
I don't think it should disturb people. I mean, why would any candidate accept results that haven't even occurred yet? It's extremely important that we make sure that people are aware and paying attention, particularly when he has already stated specific cities like Philadelphia, whose Secretary of State has already released information saying there has been voter fraud, and we're paying attention. That's another reason why he's always pushing for early voting. It's another reason why he's saying we have to win big, we have to win by big margins, just to make sure there's no funny business that occurs.
But there's no evidence that there's widespread funny business. There have been isolated cases of fraud. I promise this is the last question I'll ask about this. So, but
and I think
the murder rate in New York City is up 10% since the end of stop and frisk. But he said murders.
Well, we can look at numbers, we can look at murders, we can look at crime, but the fact is, and he was speaking specifically about Chicago. He mentioned
said New York City.
He mentioned what had happened in New York, but then he was talking about Chicago. And what we know about Chicago specifically, because this is the community he's talking about, is that when Chicago had stop and frisk, and then they got rid of it, the police were complaining there was too much paperwork, crime dropped back, and now we have a serious problem in Chicago.
But 250,000 people who were picked up in Chicago were black. Overwhelmingly
you know what?
black.
I agree with you.
And the thing is, none of them had a gun on them when they were pulled over. And that's why people in Chicago are saying it didn't work for our city.
Absolutely.
So why would it work for anywhere else in America?
The reason why he's talking about this issue is because we have a very serious problem in America, but nobody ever wants to talk about why. We don't ask the question,
but I'm not talking about why. I want to know,
it matters why, because this is where we are today.
Stop and frisk?
Because it actually did work in New York
But it
City.
didn't work in New York and it didn't work in Chicago. The tangible, I'm talking empirical evidence here.
There's
about
evidence
pulling
that supports
a black
the other
man
side,
or a
just
Hispanic
like everything else. But
the solution he's coming up with, people saying, it just doesn't work. It's been tried in multiple cities in America, and it's just flat out.
It was also ruled
work.
unconstitutional. I think, and as Rita is pointing out, almost every analysis that's been done, impartial analysis of stop and frisk, has proven that it does not work. You said, when Rita asked you the question about why Mr. Trump referred to President Obama as your president to Hillary Clinton, you couldn't get inside his head. But you're telling me, in this situation, when he was clearly saying New York City, murders had gone up in New York City, you're saying he's talking about Chicago. So I think a lot of people, when they look at the Trump campaign,
he was making an analogy there, and you can bring Mayor Rudy Giuliani and have this question. I mean, he was the man that actually implemented it. I was not the mayor at that time, but I will tell you that there have been guns taken off the street, many guns. Even though there were a lot of people who didn't have guns, there were those that did. We do have a serious problem in this country with gangs in the inner cities, and no one's doing anything about it.
So the question that I was going to ask, which is, you know, in many instances, and as we heard tonight, Donald Trump is faced with empirical evidence that is unbiased, and he says to the contrary. For example, Lester Holt questioned him on his support of the Iraq War, and he said that that's not true. And in fact, it is. We actually have. Do we have that sound of Donald Trump on the Howard Stern show?
No, we don't, but you know what we have? We actually have a soundbite we want to talk about Clinton and stamina.
Well, hold on just one second. I want to address your question on the Iraq War. That was 2002. It was a radio interview. When someone asks you a question and you say, I guess so, with no information, that's not support of a war. It was an I guess so. It was after the fact when he was adamantly opposed to it. And keep in mind, Donald Trump never voted to send troops anywhere. He never voted on any policy at all in his entire life. He was against the Iraq War. Just because he said, well, I guess so, on a radio show, you can't use that and hold him responsible for sending people into war.
We do know he's very good friends with Fox News, former Fox News chairman Roger Ailes. If he felt very passionately about being against the war in Iraq, he could have easily gotten on any program on Fox News. And
Sean Hannity.
Been running that soundbite.
He was on Sean Hannity.
He was on Sean Hannity years after the war, the invasion of the U.S. war.
But he had been talking about this. And I'll tell you something else. Donald Trump, again.
So, Katrina, let's assume that you're absolutely correct, that he did not mean to incite any violence. That's not what he was saying. But people heard that.
Well, People may have heard that, and it's been reinforced, by the media. And the reason Hillary Clinton is not commenting on it is because she herself did talk about the actual assassination of Obama in 2008. That MSNBC video and the MSNBC video has been released. And that's why she's not talking about it, because even she knows that the inference was not to incite violence against her.
This is about Donald Trump. This isn't about Hillary Clinton. You just said people may have heard that. If people heard that, doesn't he have responsibility for his words?
Because it's being reinforced by the media. That was the second part of what I said. If you listen to Donald Trump's rallies, Kate,
would you like me to play the sound again?
Every rally.
We are just,
he talks
Katrina,
about this at every rally.
If
Hillary Clinton is able to appoint Supreme Court candidates against the Second Amendment, there has to be something to stop her.
My question is, does he have any accountability for what people hear, for what they interpret as a remark inciting people to violence?
If he had control over the liberal news networks, absolutely. But he does not. And that's another reason why we're talking about this today, because they have picked out a piece of what he was talking about in the greater context of a topic he's talked about in every single rally, and that is the power of the NRA, and that is the ability for Hillary Clinton, if elected, would support candidates at the Supreme Court that would actually strip the rights piece by piece from law-abiding citizens and their ability to defend themselves.
If he's elected president, every word is going to matter, right? Every word matters when you're president. He brags often about being able to deal with China, being able to renegotiate trade deals with China. If his words are misinterpreted, he will not get a do-over when he's president of the United States. I think that's what a lot of people are reacting to here. If he misspoke, you don't get a do-over when you're president.
You don't get a do-over really on anything at that level. Would be too.
So you have no, to go back to my question, you have no concern about his ability as president, if he were president, to make a, make an argument with